Hi, Al Gansky here, altongansky.com writer and incorrigible typewriter addict. Thank you for joining me for another Typewriter Tuesday. We're in my tiny little library, and I'm going to share with you one of my favorite and most recent finds among the typewriter world. A typewriter that is very often praised. It's one of the most popular typewriters from the typewriter era, and some great authors have used it. So I want to share this little beauty with you, and if that doesn't get your interest, let me just tell you, it's minty green. Again, this is Alton Gansky. Stay tuned as we look at a Hermes 3000.
It's Typewriter Tuesday. Let's journey into the past to see what writers of old used to use to ply their trade. What kind of mechanical beauty does Al have for us this week?
Well, here we are, and again, my tiny little library. And I want to introduce you to the Hermes 3000, which is one of the most lauded typewriters among typewriter collectors. They're not that rare, but they are dearly loved. This, of course, is the case. It's a nice aluminum case. This particular typewriter is from 1964. It's a variation, an advancement from a typewriter that was being made in 1958. And prior to that, there was a Hermes 2000. Let me just remove this lid. It's a great little lid. You can see it's got places for the paper and your manual and things like that. Unfortunately, I didn't get a manual with this. I stumbled across this at one of my favorite antique shops, and it was just sitting there calling out to me, and what could I do but buy the thing. As you can see, it's this lovely minty green. Someone said that the keys, this color green reminds them of those little mints you get when you go to a wedding. They put at the reception table and the like. As you can see, it's been used quite a bit. It has some wear marks, but despite the fact that it's been used a lot, it is very clean. And I'm assuming that one of the reasons is that they've been taking it to a typewriter shop, whoever had it before. And typewriter repair shops used to put stickers on them, on their typewriter, so you had their phone number readily available and wouldn't go someplace else. Unfortunately, someone has taken it off and it's peeled the paint off and left that mark. Still, I think it's a lovely typewriter. Again, you can rate the usage of a typewriter when you see all these little dots. This is the period. This has been used enough that it's left imprints from the typeface as it smacks through the paper and onto the platen, especially back when the platen was a little softer than it is today. You can see a few other little wear marks, but these are no biggies for me. These just tell me this thing has had a life, and so I expect something, especially a typewriter like this from 1964, to have those kinds of wear marks. And if I were doing a full restoration, I'd probably address those, but I'm not so sure that really needs to be done with this. Very clean on the inside and the outside, except on the type slugs, the part of the type bar that actually imprints the ribbon ink onto the paper. That had not been cleaned for quite a while, so I worked on it a bit to get that clean so I could get a nice type sample. And as we go around, you see that's kind of unique in a number of ways. The green is carried through. This, I'll show you again in a little bit, is to move the carriage back and forth. Instead of a lever, most typewriters had levers. Now again, this is the 3000. There was a 2000, which looks quite a bit different than this, and it also is a fantastic machine, or so that I'm told. You see, it's Hermes. Hermes, a Swiss company, and the company that really started making these typewriters used to make music boxes, among other things, and they would go through, as many typewriter companies would later. And they would make other things like calculators and other such items. And that's not uncommon as we got further along in the technology age with this. Some distinctive features that I want to share with you. Look at this, this return lever here. This thing is way out front, works very well. And the other things is, and one of the most interesting things is that unfortunately this doesn't have it. But there used to be a ribbon that ran inside the paper bale that would show you where your margins were. Let's see if I can zoom in close enough here. As you can look up in here, you see that's a little pulley and one over here too. And there used to be a red ribbon that ran through there. This one is long since gone, but it'd be great to have that. When I bought this, it was missing this right platen knob, and I thought, well, I'll go on eBay, but I don't know if I'm going to find just a platen knob. And by the time I got home, somebody was selling one, and I put in a bid at just the right time, and I got it, and was delivered faster than I expected. So I was able, and one reason I'm posting this a day late, I was able to get that knob on there so we could get the full effect of it. As we look at some of the other little details on this, let's start with the keyboard. Just so you know that sometimes on these, the tab key and the backspace key are reversed. So on some of the typewriters, the reverse key, the backspace key is here, tab key is over there. These four keys up here, which I think are just fabulous, they're out of the way, you can find them very easily. And that is to add a tab. This deletes the tab. This deletes all the tabs. So if you had 5 tabs in there, you hit that and they all go away. And this is the margin release. So if you get up to the line and the carriage stops moving, you push that and you can get a couple more letters in. You can see that the keys are just beautifully shaped. They are dished almost perfectly. This is one of the things people brag about on this typewriter. The feel of it, the spacing's close to perfect, the action's just perfect. It's wonderful the way they arrange these keys. It just feels natural. It makes you want to type. But a couple other interesting little things here. Now you'll notice there's no 1. It starts with a 2. That's not unusual. But there is an exclamation mark. And normally the exclamation mark on most typewriters is above the 1. And if you didn't have a 1 key, then you had to use an apostrophe, backspace, then put a period in if you wanted to use an exclamation mark. Most professional writers hate exclamation marks, so that was never a big problem for me. But you also get the pound sign that Twitter would make great use of many years later. Now, something else that's interesting here, if you look at the 4, so we know we have an American keyboard, because above the 4, you see the dollar sign, but look over here. And if we look closely at it, it looks like a pound sign. In essence, it is, but it has 2 lines through it instead of 1. So I don't believe it's a British pound sign. I believe it's a lira sign. It's Italian. Now, if you know better than I do about this, put something in the comments, because I'd love to know. But my little research said that this is an Italian symbol with the 2 lines through it for the lira. Of course, that's all been replaced by the euro and in many nations. So that just sort of dates the thing, but that's fine. And I think I only have one other typewriter that has another currency symbol on it, and that's one that is used, had Spanish characters on it also. So it was meant for both U.S. and Mexico. This one is probably also geared for Italy, and they may have made other keyboards for that. Another thing you see on this that you don't see on others, you see these little marks here, and that's probably from a fingernail over the years, hitting the tab. But notice the number of dots on the ribbon select. And I think this may be the only typewriter that I have, anyway, that has these choices. The top one, the white, that's for stencil. And so when you hit the key, notice the ribbon doesn't rise. The next one, the blue, is the top of the ribbon. So when you hit the key, notice the ribbon rises a little. And the key, the typeface, will strike the top of the ribbon. The next one down, notice this a little more carefully now, so I move that down to the yellow. When you push this up, the typeface, the slug, will hit the middle of the ribbon. And then the bottom one, if I had bichrome ribbon in here, would be the red, and it hits the bottom of the ribbon. So that's kind of interesting for me. Unless you plan to use red for some reason, there is nothing wrong with using just an all black ribbon like this, where you get a little more mileage out of it than you would if you just had the bichrome ribbon on it. Off to the side again, we see some more scratches here. Again, probably fingernails from hitting the backspace, because typists hit backspace a lot. I'm no different in that. I think every typist does. This classy little arrow here, let's get a little better light on it. This is the tensioner. You got big meaty hands, muscular fingers. You put it on the top, that makes it a little harder to type. If you push it all the way down to the bottom, it makes it a little easier. And all that really does is adjust the screen on the inside. Now let me show you something else here that I found interesting. I love it when the whole thing comes off. That whole hood, that whole cap, ribbon cover comes off, and you can set it to the side and get in access to this very easily. Now remember I said there was just a spring in here. If I lift this up and if I get close up, there's that spring. See, the higher it has the spring under tension, greater tension than when it's all the way down. That ties into a bar at the bottom that adjusts the action. The other great thing about this is this carriage, this basket. Now normally in a typewriter it's U-shaped. It looks like a horseshoe. But this one is kind of undulating. You notice how it's high on one end, it goes down, sort of like a roller coaster. So it goes up and down. And I think it looks fabulous because of that. So that was one of the things I found interesting. Mechanism's very clean on the inside. Does need a new platen, but that's okay. And then one of the other great little things is the paper. Here's the paper table back here, sometimes called an erasure table. And let's see if I can get this to work here. So that your paper stand, and it's all curvy, just like the typewriter's curvy. Now let's just curve here. A while back I did a quiet writer. Had those cool curves, almost still in the Art Deco kind of thinking, that we're many years past the Art Deco experience. But I love this, and the paper comes off the edge. Instead of going straight up, it allows the paper to lay down, which I think is fabulous. We come around, we see we have the line spacing on this. We have a 1, 1.5, and a double space. Works very well. Again, this ribbon, this button here, instead of being a lever, releases the carriage so you can move it back and forth. And this sets the margin. And this is probably the only complaint you'll get on the Hermes 3000 is it is not as intuitive as other typewriters for setting margins. Because what you have to do is you have to move the carriage to wherever you want your margin to be. So since it's the left one over here, you move it there, you pull that lever, it'll set the margin. Then you have to do the same thing on the other side, and sometimes it gets a little tricky. So sometimes there'll be a complaint that it's just not quite as intuitive. It also has the roller release, so it takes the pressure off the paper. If you want to slip something in or out, or using something thicker like an envelope. I used this for an envelope the other day. Since it was handy, it was on my work table. It also has a carriage lock. If you ever go to buy a typewriter and you can't get the carriage to move, remember one of the things you want to do is you want to hit the space bar and see that it moves. That means the mainspring is still there, and the string itself, the drawband, is in place. But when you move these or ship these, you want to be able to lock the carriage in place, and that's what this little item is right here. And the way that works is really very simple. Let's move back here so you can see this. And what I do is I pull up on it and it'll lock it in place. Helps if I use the right lever. I push down on it and it locks it in place. Always helps to use the right lever when doing those things. All right, so a wonderful little typewriter. I love using it. We'll try to do a little typing on it here for you in just a second. Some famous writers have used it. Probably the most famous writer to use this style of typewriter is Jack Kerouac. Jack Kerouac of Beat generation. Died young at the age of 47, I think, from problems from alcoholism, and I think. But nonetheless, he's very well known. He had a typewriter before he got one of these, because he sort of stream of consciousness kind of writer, he didn't like pulling paper out and putting new paper in. It broke his thinking, his stream of consciousness. So he put a long roll of paper, shelf paper, put it in, and just started typing. And he did one of his long works on that, and it just kept rolling out the back. That was a different typewriter than this, but he used this to replace that one, and he wrote his agent, Sterling Lord, and asked how he liked his new typewriter. Told him he had to get a new one because his last one, quote, broke in half, end quote. I don't think he explained how that happened, and I've got to imagine that there was a bit of a story behind all of that. Well, let me see if I can put all this back together here. Now, all typewriters have their own personal little quirks. It took me a while to realize one of these was that it had a gap along here that was larger than the gap over here, and I couldn't figure out why that was because it's so finely engineered. It was just that the hood, the typewriter ribbon cover, was hanging up in the back. Once I fixed that, we were good to go. Well, there it is, a Hermes 3000, fabulous typewriter. People say a lot of good things about it, and now I know why. It is, if you're going to type on a typewriter, you want to be a writer or something, and you want to do it the old way, this would be a good one to have. One last thing about it is this name Hermes 3000 will carry on for quite a while, but the typewriter will change its appearance. The next version of this does not have all these luscious curves of this typewriter, and it goes far more angular. Pretty much the same typewriter mechanism that we have here, and then it'll go yet even a different style, but it's basically the same thing. Probably last thing to notice is that it is a basket shift, sometimes called a segment shift. That is, when you push the shift key, it drops, rather than the typist having to lift the platen when they wanted to capitalize. The Hermes 2000 didn't have that. It lifted the carriage itself, and so that was one of the things they did to improve it. Well, there it is. Thank you for joining me in my little library and looking at the Hermes 3000. This is Alton Gansky, altongansky.com, saying goodbye for now. Feeds nicely. And let's do our usual test. Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dogs. This is a Hermes 3000 typewriter, and it is a real pleasure to use.